December 1943. Somewhere east of the Dnieper, I can barely feel my fingers as I hold this pencil. The pages of this little notebook are stiff with frost, and when I breathe, the air freezes around the words before they even dry. We have been retreating for weeks now ways west, always toward a horizon that never comes any closer. The snow keeps falling, soft and endless, as if the sky itself wants to bury us. When I close my eyes, I still see the city burning behind us. It used to be a place whose name I can hardly pronounce, but to us, it was simply the post. We fought for every street, every house, until nothing was left but stone and fire. At night, the flames rose higher than the church steeple, painting the snow red and gold. We were ordered to hold our ground, then to withdraw, then to hold again. Orders meant little by then. The city was gone, and we were ghosts, leaving its ashes behind. Hunger follows us like another comrade, silent, patient, always near. Our bread froze solid 2 days ago. We had to hammer it against the butt of a rifle to break it. Some of the men chew on raw grain stolen from a barn. Others just chew on memories. My stomach hurts less now, which frightens me more than when it used to growl. It means it is given up. There are 12 of us left from the company that entered that city in October. We started with nearly 200. The new boys, the ones sent from home only months ago, walk with their heads down, eyes glazed. They do not talk about Berlin or mothers or girls anymore. Conversation wastes breath, and breath is warmth. Last night, we slept in the remains of a stable. The horses had long been eaten. Someone found a piece of harness leather and boiled it in his mess tin. The smell was unbearable, but we drank it anyway. The sergeant says we will reach the supply convoy soon. He has said that for 3 days. The cold does strange things to a man's mind. Sometimes I imagine I hear bells or a piano playing somewhere in the distance. Once I thought I smelled coffee. I followed the scent out into the snow until M. Lur pulled me back. He said, "There is no coffee east of the Dnieper," and I laughed until my throat hurt. Perhaps madness is a mercy out here. Muller still carries his harmonica. He hasn't played it since the retreat began, but I keep asking him to. Yet, he says, when we find shelter. I think he's saving the music as a promise proof that somewhere ahead there is a place where men can be human again. I hope he's right. I try not to think of home. When I do, the images come too vividly. The lamplight on Elsa's hair. It's a small garden behind the barracks. The sound of trains passing the station near our street. I used to believe I fought for those things. Now I fight for warmth, for sleep, for one more sunrise that doesn't freeze me where I stand. This afternoon, we passed through another village, if it can still be called that. The roofs were gone, and the wells were frozen over. I saw footprints leading away toward the wood's bare feet. Small ones. Children, perhaps. I didn't follow. There was nothing left to find. One of the men took a door from a house and strapped it to the sled for firewood. The houses looked at us with hollow windows as we left. Sometimes I wonder if anyone back home truly understands what the word front means. They see lines on the map. We see faces that disappear overnight. The officers still speak of honor and duty, but the snow has no respect for such words. It covers the brave and the coward alike. At dusk, the sky turned the color of steel, and for a moment, it was beautiful. Then the wind began again, howling through the broken trees, erasing our tracks behind us. It felt as though the earth itself wanted to forget we had ever been here. I write this by the glow of a small flameless scrap of newspaper burning in a tin cup. On the paper, I can still make out the headline, "Victory Imminent on the Eastern Front." I wonder if the man who wrote it has ever felt what snow tastes like when it's mixed with ash. If anyone ever finds this diary, perhaps they will understand that we were not heroes or monsters, just men lost between fire and frost. Still see the city's glow far behind us on the horizon, a red wound against the night. Maybe it will burn until the spring thaw. Maybe by then, none of us will be here to see it. The flame is dying. My hands are numb. I will try to sleep for an hour, if sleep can still be found in this cold. Tomorrow, we march again west, always west. The march never ends. Every morning, we rise from shallow holes in the snow, brush the frost from our coats, and move again. The sun is little more than a pale coin behind the clouds, and when it sets, the world becomes a single color white, fading into gray. Sometimes I think the whole army is walking in circles, chasing the warmth of its own breath. Muller still walks beside me. He coughs often now. Each sound seems to tear something loose inside him. He says it's the smoke from the burned villages. I know it's the cold. At night, I place my coat over him, pretending I'm not freezing too. Kay thanks me with a nod that looks more like a shiver. Kay, we came upon a column of supply wagons stuck in the drifts. The horses had died in their traces, stiff like statues. The men guarding them had gone on ahead, leaving only crates that we were told not to touch. Discipline has become a word we whisper without conviction. Someone pried open a box anyway. Inside were empty tins labels, promising things none of us had tasted in months. The men laughed without sound. By evening, we found another group from the regiment. They had lost their officer. One of them, a boy no older than 17, carried a folded flag inside his coat, as if it could keep him warm. He said he'd been ordered never to let it touch the ground. I watched him sleep, clutching it, his face turned toward the sky. The snow covered him by morning, and the flag remained clean. The hunger grows quieter now. It is not the sharp ache it once was. It is dull, heavy, like a stone in the stomach. We have learned to chew snow for water. It keeps the tongue from cracking, but it steals the heat from your body. Sometimes I think the cold is gentler than thirst. We passed through another town. Yesterday burned roofs, doors torn away, smoke frozen mid-air. I saw a piano half buried in rubble, one key exposed. When the wind blew, it made a faint sound, a single note repeating. For a moment, the men stopped and listened. Music in a dead place. It felt like a memory trying to live. Muller finally played his harmonica tonight. Short tune, simple and soft, like the lullabies my mother used to hum when the trains went by our house. The men sat around him, their faces hollow in the glow of a lantern. No one spoke when he finished. The silence afterward was the only applause he needed. The lieutenant says the front is collapsing and we ought to fall back to a river crossing. No one asks which river. Rivers have become boundaries between yesterday and tomorrow, and both feel equally uncertain. I keep thinking of the one near home where Elsa and I used to walk in summer. She liked to skip stones, and I would count the ripples they made. Now I count footsteps, breaths, the days since I last saw something green. This afternoon, we buried 2 men. The ground was too hard, so we covered them with snow instead. Muller said a prayer, his voice cracking with the wind. I found myself whispering amen without meaning to. Faith seems easier out here, where the sky is empty and the earth listens. Sometimes I wonder what the people in the burning cities think when they see us retreat. Do they curse us, pity us, or simply turn away? We used to believe the war had purpose. Now it feels like a great tide pulling everyone down together, friend and foe alike. The snow hides our differences. We all look the same beneath it. The column ahead has stopped. A bridge must have collapsed. We will camp here until dawn. The men are building fires from broken wagons. The smoke smells of tar and wet wood. I'll write a few more lines before my fingers stiffen again. If anyone finds these pages, perhaps they will know that somewhere among the armies and commands, there were still small moments of mercy. Someone sharing half a crust, a tune played in the dark, a hand offered to lift another man from the snow. Those are the things I want to remember, if memory still matters. The wind is rising. The stars are faint, but visible for the first time in weeks. They look fragile, like holes in the sky where warmth might leak through. I will sleep facing them. Maybe they still shine over home. The road has disappeared beneath the snow. We followed the telegraph poles instead, black scars cutting across a white world. Somewhere ahead, there is supposed to be a station, a place where we can rest or regroup. The word station feels almost magical. Now somewhere that has walls, a roof, perhaps even the smell of coal smoke. But each mile we walk, the air grows colder and the snow deeper, until even the poles begin to vanish in the haze. There are 8 of us left. Muller walks slower every day, his cough a dry whisper. I tried to keep him talking, to remind him he's still alive. We speak about home, about music, about the smell of rain on warm stone. Anything to keep our minds away from the emptiness around us. The others don't talk anymore. They move like shadows, faces hidden in scarves, their eyes fixed on nothing. By midday, we reach what remains of the rail line. The tracks are twisted and half buried, the sleepers splintered by frost. A locomotive lies on its side, black and hollow, like the carcass of some great animal. The snow has drifted inside the cabin, covering the controls. I imagine the driver, once standing there, hands on the levers, looking west, just as we do now. Did he think he would make it home? Or did he know, even then, that the line would end here? We take shelter inside the ruined freight car. The metal is cold enough to burn the skin, but it blocks the wind. Someone finds a crate of straw under the snow, and we spread it across the floor. For the first time in days, we sit rather than march. Muller pulls out his harmonica again, but does not play. He just holds it in his hands, turning it over like a small piece of memory. As darkness falls, the sky glows faintly with a distant fire. Another city, burning perhaps, or maybe only our imagination. The nights have become long enough to hold anything: hope, fear, regret, all mixed together. I find myself writing slower now. My fingers ache and the pencil feels heavy. Still, I write, because words are the only warmth left to me. I think about what brought us here. Once, I believed in the cause. They spoke of in orders, shouted from podiums, in flags and promises. But out here, none of it matters. The snow covers all symbols equally. When I look at the men around me, I see not soldiers, but people who once had gardens, letters, birthdays. They came from the same streets as the ones we destroyed. That thought follows me more closely than the cold. In the stillness, I can hear the river somewhere beyond the trees. It's frozen over, but beneath the ice, the water must still move. I envy it. Even trapped, it keeps flowing toward something. We seem to move without destination, following orders that no one remembers giving. Tonight, I dreamt of Elsa again. She stood in our kitchen, flour on her hands, smiling as if nothing had ever happened. I tried to reach her, but each step I took filled with snow until I could no longer move. She didn't speak, only watched me, and then the scene dissolved into white. When I woke, the real snow had blown through a crack in the wagon door and covered my boots. It felt like the dream had followed me back. At dawn, the lieutenant decided we would split into pairs and look for food in the nearby woods. I went with Muller, found a shack half buried under a drift. Inside, there was a rusted stove and a few blackened pots. Nothing else. On the wall, someone had carved words in Russian. I couldn't read them, but Muller said softly, "Maybe a prayer." He touched the letters with his fingers as if they might still be warm. We built a small fire in the stove, using pages from my notebook that were already filled. Watching the words curl and turn to ash was strangely comforting. Perhaps all memories deserve a little fire to keep them company. When we returned to the others, one man was gone. No one asked where he went. Asking would mean caring, and caring hurts more than the cold. I wrote his name on the inside cover of this diary, just in case. It feels important that someone remember him. The snow began again at dusk, thick and silent. The wind shaped it into ridges around the train cars, as if burying us slowly. I sit here, writing by the light of a small candle stub. The flame flickers when the wind moans through the cracks, but it still burns. It reminds me of Elsa's candle in our window at home. She said she would keep it lit until I returned. I wonder if she still does. If tomorrow brings another march, I will follow, though I no longer know what we are retreating toward. Perhaps survival is not a direction, but simply the act of refusing to stop. Each step is a small defiance against the snow, against forgetting. Muller is asleep beside me, his harmonica resting on his chest. I can hear his breathing, shallow but steady. Outside, the snow falls harder, covering the tracks completely. When the storm ends, even this place will vanish beneath the white. Then only the wind will remember we were here. The storm has passed, leaving a silence that feels almost holy. The air is so still, I can hear the ice creak on the river and the faint clicking of my own pen. We are fewer now, 5 men, maybe 6. It's hard to count when faces blur together behind scarves and frost. The landscape no longer belongs to anyone. The houses stand empty, their roofs sunken under snow, their doors open like mouths that have forgotten how to speak. Smoke rises from none of them. We walk through the yards quietly, as if not to wake the ghosts that must live inside. Mahler cannot walk far. We made a sled from a barn door and pull him when the ground is level. He apologizes each time we stop, but we tell him to save his breath. Words feel expensive now, something to be spent carefully. In the evenings, he still holds the harmonica, though he has no strength left to play. The men listen anyway, as if the silence between his fingers is a melody we all remember. Today, we reached the edge of the forest and saw, for the first time in weeks, the outline of a town on the horizon. The roofs were dark against the snow, and for a moment, I felt the faint spark of belief that someone there might still have bread, or even a fire. But when we came closer, the smell of smoke told the truth before our eyes could. Another shell of a place, its walls frozen, its windows shattered. We found no one. Inside a half-burned chapel, we rested. The altar had fallen, but the stained glass was still there, blue and green pieces held together by frost. Light from the setting sun turned the snow inside the chapel, the color of water. Muller whispered, "It's beautiful," and for a moment, it was. I almost believed we had come there for that sight alone. I sat where the pews had been and wrote Elsa's name in the snow with a stick. The letters looked too small for all that she means, so I wrote it again, larger, until the snow turned smooth and white once more. It felt like prayer without words, only shape and breath. That night, as we huddled by a broken wall, I asked the lieutenant what he would do if he made it home. He stared into the dark for a long time before answering, "I will plant trees." No one laughed. It was a good answer, maybe the only one left. I thought of the garden behind our old house, of the apple tree we planted the year we married. If the roots survived the bombs, it might bloom again this spring. I hope someone sees it. When morning came, Muller did not wake. His face was calm, turned toward the light coming through the broken glass. We covered him with his own coat and laid the harmonica beside him. No one spoke. The lieutenant made the sign of the cross, though I, Dan T., think he ever went to church. Then we left, because the cold does not wait for morning. The road west led across a frozen field. The snow glittered under the sun, too bright to look at. For the first time in months, I could feel the warmth of light on my face. It startled me how strange it felt to feel anything but cold. The men walked ahead, their shadows long and thin. Each step made a sound like paper tearing. As we moved, I found myself remembering the city. Not the ruins we left behind, but the city as it was, the smell of bread in the morning, the clang of the tram, the laughter in courtyards after rain. I remembered the day the first bombs fell, how the sky turned red, and I told myself it was only the dawn. Now I understand that the city never truly burned. It simply returned to the dust it had come from, like everything else. We stopped by the river to drink. The ice was thin, and I could see the dark water moving beneath. I broke a piece and tasted it. It was sharp and clean, the purest thing I'd known in a long time. The lieutenant said we would follow the river south. There might be a bridge still standing. None of us cared where it led. South sounded warmer. That was enough. That evening, I climbed a small rise to look back. The forest we had crossed was a black line on the horizon, and beyond it, nothing but white sky. Somewhere under that snow lies everything we once believed in. And yet, as the wind moved across the plain, I felt a strange peace. The war still roared far away, but here, for a heartbeat, the world was quiet. These pages survive. Let them say this: there were men who walked through that winter, not as monsters, but as people who were lost. We carried hunger, fear, and a kind of hope we didn't understand. We looked for warmth in a land that had none, and when we couldn't find it, we built it between us for a while. The stars are out again tonight, faint and scattered. I will sleep facing them. Tomorrow we march on, though I no longer know to where. Perhaps every road ends in the same place, in silence, in forgiveness, or in the slow return of spring. The sound of the river has faded behind us. For days, we have walked through open country, where the wind moves without resistance, and the snow has turned to slush. The thaw has begun small, uncertain, but real. The ice cracks beneath our boots, and water pools in the ruts left by our steps. The world smells faintly of mud again, not death. It feels strange to breathe air that carries the scent of life. There are only 4 of us now. The lieutenant still leads, though his uniform has lost all color. Beside him walks Weber, the youngest among us, whose face has aged 10 years in 3 months. He carries a photograph folded inside his glove, a girl with dark hair, smiling. He looks at it whenever he thinks no one sees. I do not ask who she is. The living should keep their secrets. The nights are shorter, okay? At dusk, we build small fires from broken branches, careful not to let the smoke rise too high, okay? The enemy is everywhere and nowhere. We no longer know who hunts whom, okay? But even with danger close, I find I no longer fear it. The war has taken so much that even fear feels spent. What remains is something quieter in acceptance, that this is how the world moves, breaking and rebuilding in endless rhythm. We found a farmhouse yesterday, half collapsed, but still standing. Inside were chairs, a clock without hands, and a small mirror hanging crooked on the wall. I looked into it for a long time. The man staring back was hollow-cheeked, his eyes pale and rimmed with red. For a moment, I didn't recognize him. Then I realized it wasn't that I'd changed. It was that I'd forgotten what peace looked like on a face. I turned the mirror to the wall before we left. As we moved on, the lieutenant stopped suddenly and pointed to the sky. A flock of birds, dark, scattered, flew overhead, heading west. None of us had seen birds for months. Their wings beat against the wind like pieces of hope stitched together. Weber smiled, the first real smile I'd seen in weeks, said softly, "They know the way home." I didn't answer. Some part of me wanted to believe they would lead us there. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I took out this notebook. It is almost full now. The pages are stiffed from frost and smoke, but still they hold the words. Perhaps that is what we are meant to do, carry the weight of our own story until someone else can read it. I imagine Elsa sitting by the window, the candle still burning beside her. Maybe she will never see these pages, but I write to her anyway. My dearest, if you've ever read this, know that I thought of you each day, not as a dream or a ghost, but as the only truth that kept me walking. I wanted to return to you with hands clean and heart unbroken, but the world had other plans. Still, I have not forgotten who I was before the war, before the uniforms and the ashes. That memory is yours. It belongs to no army. The wind rises again, carrying a smell of wood smoke, real smoke, not from battle. Somewhere ahead, people must still be living, tending fires, speaking softly to one another. The thought makes me tremble, not from cold, but from disbelief. Could the world truly continue, even after all this? The lieutenant says we will rest tonight near the old mill and try to reach the next town by morning. My strength fades with each mile, but I will walk until the light leaves the sky. There is something sacred in the motion itself, the rhythm of footsteps, the sound of breath. It reminds me that I am still part of the living, at least for now. As darkness falls, the others sleep near the embers. I sit apart, watching the snow melt around the fire. The ground beneath is dark and damp, almost warm. I think of spring, of rivers swelling, of trees budding, of the apple blossoms that used to fall across our garden path. I imagine walking there barefoot, the soil soft and forgiving. Maybe when the war ends, someone will plant those trees again. Maybe their children will never know our names, only the shade we left behind. The stars appear one by one, faint but steady. I close this notebook with the last of my strength, my fingers stiff and slow. If it is found, let it be read, not as confession or apology, but as remembrance. The world will rebuild itself from stories like these small truths buried beneath the snow. The fire is low now. The night grows quiet. Okay, we'll sleep for a while, and if morning comes, I will walk again.